All right, here we go. Video number 2 on substitution of values. We're going to look at some more difficult ones with some negatives and hopefully a little bit of equations here at the end, all right? So here we go. We just got two little problems here. We got one with an x, y, and a z, and one with an a, b, and c. All right, so let's just go ahead and substitute these. If you watched the last video, you know that when you substitute for a variable, you're going to put this in parentheses. So I'm going to have a 2 squared, and then I'm going to go minus, and then I'm going to put y in parentheses. Y is negative 4. Okay, now you'll notice the minus is there, and so is the negative for the 4. That's important. That's why we put it in parentheses, to make sure that we remember both of those. This minus right here is different from that one. Then we got plus x, which is 2, times z squared, which would be that 3 squared. All right, now according to PEMDAS, we do the exponents first, so 2 squared is 4. Now this could be treated as a subtraction, so we're going to not worry about that one quite yet. And then we're going to go plus, and then we will do 2 times 3 squared, which is 9. And then at this point, we'll go ahead and go do the multiplication. This negative times the negative is also really a multiplication, so that becomes 4. Negative times the negative is positive, and then plus 18, and then we add all those together. 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 18 is 26. Ta-da! That wasn't so bad, was it? Okay, well, let's look at the other one. The other one you're going to see quite often this year. This is actually what's called the quadratic formula, plus or minus a little bit of stuff. So let's go ahead and try putting these numbers in. It's not all that bad. It's just plugging numbers in, which is, again, one of the reasons why this is so important. So negative b. Notice that I put the negative, and then I put b, which is negative 1 in parentheses. I'm going to go plus, and then b squared, so negative 1 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. I just put the numbers in, substituting values. Okay? Now, here's another one of those things we said before. When you have a fraction, the stuff on top is kind of in its own little world there, right? So you've got to do the stuff on top before you can divide it by whatever's on the bottom. Also, anything inside of a square root is kind of also in its own little world there. So this inside has to be done before you can do the addition with that negative 1 on the outside. Okay, so let's go ahead and we'll go in and start trying to do a little bit more of this. Okay, so the negative 1 you can go ahead and do, because that needs to be done before you can add. So negative 1 would be a positive 1, and then we'll go plus the square root. So let's do the stuff inside the square root. Negative 1 squared, negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, and then I've got the negative 4, the 2, and the negative 6, so we can multiply those together, because the 4, the 2, and the negative 6 all have to be multiplied together before we can do this addition subtraction here. So it's easiest if you do negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8, and then negative 8 times negative 6 is a positive 48. And so we're going to change it to a plus 48, and then we'll go all over 2 times 2. Now we can do the stuff inside the root. We'll have 1 plus the square root of 49 all over 2 times 2. We're almost done, because now we have 1 plus the square root of 49 is 7 all over 2 times 2. Remember, the stuff on top has to be done before you can divide it by that 2 plus 2. So 1 plus 7 is 8 divided by 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Our final answer is 2. Now, who'd have thunk all that would end up being so simple as this little 2 here? Isn't that a nice little 2? That's a lot nicer than this stuff up here. That's why we learned how to simplify. All right? Now, really quick, I'm going to take just a minute and talk about equations really quick, because everything I've done so far has been expressions. But, you know, from time to time, we're actually going to work with equations. Okay, so most of the time, we're working with equations. For example, 3x plus 7 equals negative 5. And so if we have this, we know how to solve this, but what if they tell us, or they ask us, is x equals 2 a solution. That means, can x equal 2? Will that make this true? Well, how do we check that? We substitute and we try it. So we take the 2 and put it in for the x. And so we'll say, okay, 3 times 2 plus 7 equals negative 5. And when we try that, 3 times 2 will be 6 plus 7. Now, I don't think that's negative 5. 6 plus 7 is 13. Does that make sense? No. That means x equal 2 is not a solution. All right? So now, if you want, let's try another one. How about this one? Is x equals negative 4 a solution? All right, well, let's try. Let's go 3 times negative 4 plus 7 equals negative 5. 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. Plus 7 equals negative 5. And surely enough, negative 5 equals negative 5. And so, yes, negative 4 is a solution. And in fact, it is the only solution. That is the only number in the entire universe, including all those decimals and fractions, that will work in this equation. Pretty cool, huh? All right, well, that's all for today. Ciao.